Okay, today we're going to go ahead and install some spacers. Got these nice, there we go, 1/2-inch spacers. There's 2 stacked up here. These are off of Amazon. I can put these in the description of the video. Essentially, these are just 1-inch spacers, the bolt-on style, that have a 5-lug pattern that bolts onto the hub, and then a offset 5-lug pattern that the wheel bolts onto. So pretty simple setup here. These do require a little bit of work to fit. These are going on my 2000 C5 FRC, and these are C6 base wheels off a 2006 base Corvette. 18 inches by, I believe, 9 up front and 19 by 10 out back. I already have the 1-inch spacers out back to bring the wheels back out due to the offset. So what we're going to do today is get the wheel off. We will trim the unthreaded nose of the stud, which allows you to clear the wheel once it's bolted back on. We'll go ahead and trim the OD of the ring, the hub-centric ring here that's machined into the face. They do stick a little on these wheel spacers, so that's got to come down by just a couple thousandths, I think. And go ahead and test fit it and get some results afterwards. So we'll go ahead and get started here and get the wheel off. So you guys can see the unthreaded nose of the stud here. When your wheel is fully bolted on, these are actually sub-flush from the wheel, or I'm sorry, the face of the lug nut. So you have full engagement and probably something right about there. Actually, put it back. Look at my rear wheels here, and the lug nut full engagement when the wheel is on is actually right about there. So the threaded portion of the lug nut itself is only about the first half of the nut itself, and the rest here is, of course, is just unthreaded. And so, of course, it makes no sense to have any threads on the nose of the stud here, and that's what we're going to be trimming today. This is just an assembly aid on the line when they build this car, as well as for service technicians, dealerships, and monkeys with wrenches like me down the road to prevent cross-threading. It's just an assembly aid for getting that lug nut on there straight before you begin engaging the threads. So before we cut these, I'm going to just lightly reinstall all these lug nuts. These are basically going to act as a die. When I cut these, we're going to have a folded over edge, a rounded over edge on the face of the studs, and it might be a little bit difficult to get all the lug nuts back on. So by threading these on lightly beforehand, we can go ahead and do our cutting and hit that rolled over edge with a file before then removing the nuts. And again, the insides of the threads of the nuts will act as a die to straighten those threads out as we remove them. So that way when we go to put the lug nuts back on, you don't risk screwing up the thread or anything like that. So go ahead and get these snug up here, just finger tight. Get my cutoff wheel ready, and we'll go ahead and zing these off. So this is the fun part. Everybody loves cutoff wheels. Everybody loves sparks. Nothing quite like taking a power tool to your sports car, but it's an important rite of passage for every young man. So go ahead and get it fired up, and let's see how this goes. Okay, simple as that. You just cut the tip off, and there you are. So the next thing you'll do is you'll remove the lug nuts. Should be able to do that by hand, but they're going to be pretty hot right now since they just got sparks thrown at them. And we will then go up and clean that front edge of the stud. see how this goes. Be able to unthread them nice and easy, not even that hot. Worked out pretty well. There's actually no interference on the face of the stud. And I was thinking I'd have to pick up something like a Unibur. It's basically an external chamfer tool that you plug into your cordless drill and zing it down, and then it puts a nice chamfered edge on your bolt here. The way these are coming off, it actually turned out pretty well. So I may just soften the edges here with a file and call her good, and then we should be able to get the spacers bolted up. Okie dokie, so we got this guy here ready to go on, 1 inch, pretty beefy spacer here. So like I said, I got these on the rear of the car, been running them for probably about almost a year now, I'd say, quite a bit of time, and thousands of street miles, 1 track day, and no issues whatsoever. So I'm pretty sold on these. You can get these on Amazon for I think like 44 bucks for the pair, which is a screaming deal if you ask me. You know, they come with the studs already pressed in, hardware, everything else that you need here. Look like 10.9 metric studs. Probably made in China, but like I said, I ran these for about a year with no complaints, and pretty happy with them. So I'm going to slide this guy over. Nice fit here, actually. You got a little bit of slop on the hub here. I would say in the order of maybe 10-20 thousandths, but really not too bad actually. And they look nice. So we'll go ahead and get these nuts cinched up. I really don't even think we will need the file here. We'll see. Okay, dress these guys up, make them look purty. No sharp edges. I think these will suit us just fine. So the one thing we will have to check once you get the spacers bolted up here is the interference on the wheel. So if you think about how this is designed, how it goes together, you go ahead, you buy your spacer, you slap it on there, and if you can tell from this angle, the face of the stud is really essentially flush with the face of the spacer right here, maybe standing a couple thousandths per hour, really not anything too crazy. On the back side of the C6 wheel, and I don't know if maybe a C5 wheel or a Z06 10 spoke would be similar, but on the back of the C6 base wheel, there are actually little coves cast in on the back side, and that's for a relief of whatever sort. Now, when you have a regular hub here, there's really no reason for it. You can actually see the marks where water and all the usual garbage makes its way in there and corrodes a little bit, but these are where those coves are located. They're cast in on the wheel. They are between the lug nut holes on the wheel itself. So these are going to poke through, and hopefully the cove is recessed enough on the wheel to be able to accept that. If not, we'll have to machine or cut these down a little more. Not a big deal. Again, I've done this on the rear, and it works pretty well. So we'll go ahead and get the nuts on here to hold the spacer down, and then we'll test fit the wheel. Okay, so we got these on here, look nice. The face of the nut is again sub-flush to the face of the spacer, so no worries there as far as contact goes. We'll go ahead and test fit the wheel before I really crank this down. Maybe I might give it a quick zip with the impact gun just to make sure it's seated here. One thing I did mention with these spacers is kind of nice. The seat for the lug nut itself is actually a tapered design. I believe it's a cone on these spacers, just like it is on the regular wheel itself. So when you do tighten these down, it self-centers itself within the hole. So you don't have any of the action where you might get a little bit of wobbling or a run out on the wheel there. So We'll get these bolted and test the wheels. Okay, so now here's where we might have to do a little more work. The OD of the hub on the spacer seems to be a little bit bigger than it should be for the ID of the bore on the inside of the wheel here. So when you go to put the wheel on, there's a little bit of an interference fit there, and you almost got to work the wheel on a bit with those two surfaces working against each other. So I've kind of put up with this in the rears. The right way to do it really is to machine down the OD of the spacer hub, or I guess you could really bore out the inside of the wheel, but again, if you go to use it in the future on a different car, you're going to have a little bit of play when you're installing the wheel there. So I always rather modify the part on the car itself than the wheel, because again, if you use it somewhere else, it may cause you some issues for whatever setup you have. So go ahead and get a couple lug nuts on here, hand tighten them, and see how she fits. Okay, so that is it. And we'll show you guys up close here. You can see the area on the lug nut here that is normally filled with that unthreaded portion of the stud is now vacant. A lot of people kind of have this misconception that cutting your studs will cause you all kinds of problems with your wheels falling off, but if you're cutting off a portion that's got no threads on it, there's really nothing that you're removing that's critical to that stud. Again, that's just an assembly aid for making sure that that lug nut is seated correctly on the threads before really applying any torque and risking cross-threading. So this is what it looks like here. This is on the fronts. We'll go ahead and drop the car and see how that looks, but just for comparison, we can take a look at the rears here. Again, these have seen probably, I'd say 10,000 miles. Years worth of use, and again you've got the recessed portion of the stud inside the wheel, and then again you have full thread engagement there, so works just fine. So we'll go ahead and drop the car down and see how it turned out.